You're watching once again a YouTube video presentation of the University of Wyoming Center on Aging. I'm Scott Veach. I'm your host, and on this program we'll be discussing topics of interest for caregivers of loved ones with dementia. We hope that you will subscribe to the channel and you'll hit that thumbs up like button. Both of those actions help the channel to grow and allow us to reach more people. And if you'll tap that notification bell, you'll be alerted each time we upload a new program. And now, this is Once Again. Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Carol Taylor. She is a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in geriatric care. We were talking about communicating with our loved ones who have dementia and have trouble communicating. Part 1 concluded, we were just talking about getting into their world, having to live in the world of our loved ones because they don't have the ability to live in our world, to communicate the way that they used to. And to recap, you were talking about speech therapists and occupational therapists and the value that they have in assessing the situation. Let's kind of recap on that a little bit. Why would someone want to call in a speech therapist or occupational therapist? What's that purpose?
The purpose of that, and first of all, you need to have a physician's order. So it would be a conversation that you have with your loved one's primary care physician, and they know how to write it with the correct verbiage so that it will be covered by Medicare. First and foremost, the value for me with my beloved clients is speech therapy brings a different perspective into the scene. They will listen to someone with dementia attempt communication, and while they're listening, they're doing a deep assessment of where some of the glitches may be and some of the things that seem to flow a little bit easier. And in that assessment, they can then help guide us as professional care partners or family care partners in how to best communicate and connect. The occupational therapists are fantastic in seeing the world just a little bit differently than the rest of us. They will notice if someone is struggling to make words come out, and at the same time, they're patting their leg really pretty intensely. Well, so that to an OT and maybe to others, maybe to family members who observe these things, that's probably a little anxiety or a little agitation, that patting the leg. And that can tell us we need to pull back just a little bit, make sure I'm at eye level with this person, make sure I'm not over talking, be sure that my voice is kind and not loud. Everybody thinks we have to have loud voices. It isn't the volume so much as it is the register. So if you can speak a little bit from the lower register of your voice, the elder is more apt to pick up on that sound. And what is the emotional flavor of your voice? If it's, I know you're trying, but you're going to have to try a little harder. Well, that sounds condemning to someone that may sound condemning to someone with dementia. So it's all on us, quite honestly, just like you said, Scott. So for us to be sure to put ourselves in check, center, gather, let go of expectations. And if you can, I know this sounds corny, and I have been accused of being a cosmic muffin, but if you can really be in the present and focus exclusively on the loved one and set them up for success, not frustration or confusion or performance anxiety so check the environment before you start to talk to someone with dementia. Make sure that you get in their field of vision. Sometimes straight on is not the best way. That can feel threatening to some people. Down to their level is always helpful. Not over talking and be sure there's not overstimulation in the background.
I have heard family members say, and I imagine you have too, say, this is a progressive illness. My loved one is not going to get better. So why are we even doing any of these things?
Great. Yes. And I do hear that quite a bit. And my response to that is, if you are companioning your loved one through this journey to its end point, here are some ways that you can do that in a more effective and satisfactory way for both of you. Now, if people say, she doesn't know me anymore, I don't go visit because she can't even say my name, well, then you're dealing with a different type of human being. And so it comes back to what works for you and your loved one, what has worked for the two of you in your relationship, and how, what your needs are in terms of engaging in this horrifically challenging journey.
Following up on that, how can you tell if your efforts to communication are successful, if you're getting through?
I think there's many ways to tell. They can be quite subtle. It can be, for example, as you're talking with someone in very gentle tones, knowing that they're hearing the sound, but the feeling is what they're receiving, and a gentle pat. And if they reach and touch your hand or try to reach and touch your hand, I've had people that will reach out and try to touch my face. And that's communication. That's connection. That's being in relationship with that person. That means they're not in there all alone. And that's effective communication. In my world, I consider that a big win. And again, it isn't, this is Carol Ann. She's the elder of my two daughters. It's not what it is. But holding my hand and not wanting to let it go, singing to my mom, and she smiles and her shoulders drop a little bit. That's communication. That's being in relationship.
Even if it's just a hint of a smile or a tear.
Or a tear. Absolutely. Some expression that says, we've connected. We've connected. And not the quantity of that or even the quality of it. I mean, one of the things that continues to be so fascinating to me in working with those with dementia is there almost seems to be a purity in their responses because they come right from here. They're not all convoluted with analysis and judgment and defense mechanisms that circle through our noggins, but it's quite pure. It just comes out the way it is. And in a lot of respects, that makes it a lot easier to attend and support and nurture someone with dementia.
We're speaking with Carol Taylor of Jackson, Wyoming. She is a licensed clinical social worker, specializes in geriatric care, and we're talking about communicating with loved ones with dementia and the challenges and some of the solutions to doing that. I also have heard you say that you need to be prepared for what worked last month, not necessarily being able to continue to work this month or going forward.
Right. Or what worked this morning may not work this afternoon. And that's what I call, sometimes things work one time in a row. And given the progressive nature of the disease, that may not work for a stretch of time, several weeks, maybe several months, but don't toss it out. Keep it in your tool belt because there may be a time to bring that out again and it can work. It depends on, what it is, but always if we keep things relatively, I don't use the word simple because nothing about this is simple, but if we keep things relatively straightforward, single steps, not requiring a lot of concentration or sequencing of thoughts, not over talking with our loved ones. Yeah, we can try something again and again, but it may not, it may work this morning and not this afternoon, and it may work tomorrow at lunch.
What is a good resource, maybe the best resource for the loved one to pursue, to be able to get these communication tips, other than your conversation with me here?
Sure. I'll tell you honestly, and I'm not getting any kickback on this, but really the University of Wyoming Center on Aging, the websites that we have, the webinars, the incredible education that is available at no cost 24/7 if you get onto the website and are able to participate in that. If you want something a bit more interactive and you are a care partner of someone with dementia, then certainly Wyoming Dementia Together is a way that you can have a more interactive and conversational Q&A sometimes with these specifics. The Alzheimer's Association website, alts.org, has great tips on communication. The other, not as well known by some organization nationally, is called the Alzheimer's Association of America. No, Alzheimer's Association of America. And I can get that website. That's not quite right. But they have a 24-hour tip hotline manned by real human beings. I mean, specialists in geriatrics. So you can call in and do some Q&A on that. Also, I think, and Jenny can tell you more about this, but possibly through our geriatric echo, there's ways that families can bring their loved one to, not literally, but bring their case to a group of multidisciplinary, phenomenal experts to staff on particular issues. That can happen as well.
We'll have links to all of the Wyoming Dementia Together information in the dialogue box below.
Alzheimer's Foundation of America, okay. AFA.
You mentioned Jenny, and we should point out that we're talking about Jenny Wolf of the University of Wyoming Center on Aging, who is the guru, one of the ones who helps hold all this together. It is a progressive illness, and it's not a case where your loved one gets better. When we reach the end of life stages, does communication stop, or can we still communicate during that time period too?
Again, it always starts with our expectations. We can very much communicate. We can very much have emotional exchanges with our loved one. That's generally at that point, if we're looking at end stage, that's generally done through touch, yes, a quiet presence. I often encourage family members, if we're getting close to that transition, I say to family members, you can sing to your loved one. Oh no, they tell me to stop singing. You can hum. You can do anything that allows that person, even if they're comatose, to know that you're there. To know you're there. You can adjust their blankets. I used to do this so much in hospice. These wonderful ranch wives would want to feed their husbands, and the last thing that a dying person wants is to eat, generally. Right. And so these men would try to eat to say thank you to their wives, and then lose what they just ate. So instead I would say, you told me once that Harold really, really likes ironed pillowcases. Maybe we could change the pillowcases a couple times a day so he has a freshly ironed pillowcase. Well, that may not seem relevant to anyone, but it's something that matters to that wife in attending to her husband. Lotioning his feet if he likes that. There's always something that can be done. Again, it may not look or sound or feel reciprocal, but we all know what it is to cherish someone. Most of us do, I think, and to just be in their presence and in their, energy field, and them in ours, is sometimes the best we can do.
I just thought of this, and let me toss it out to you. And that is that I have been very pleasantly surprised at how young children are able to function and able to be with grandma at the end time. That's a possibility also, isn't it?
Always, always. And children and animals, how beautiful, because they're not all up here in
Hmm.
these overactive, rational minds of ours. You know, they're here, they feel. And if somebody doesn't say to a child, now be really careful and you're going to have to be really quiet and don't jump on the bed with grandma because she's really, really, really sick. I mean, yeah, we can implant that into a child's noggin, or we can say, take my hand, come with me, and let's be with grandma and see how she's doing right now. And that varies, just like you've said many times, Scott. That varies day to day, hour to hour.
We're wrapping up. Anything else that we need to cover today? I mean, we've covered a lot of information in this part two of our conversation. If you missed part one, it's already been posted, and you'll be able to go back and watch that once again program as
Yeah.
well. But so there's been a lot of information. Anything we should touch on before we wrap up?
I think that very first and foremost, check your intentions, check your expectations, because that really is where enlightened, successful communication with your loved one with dementia really does begin. And if your expectations are higher than their performance capacity right now, then you may need to look at adjusting that a little bit, because it's up to us to set the stage for our loved ones to succeed. And I guess that would just, and it's not new information, I've said it several times, but that I would underscore that one. I think that's so very important that we are clearer, because very often the way people will talk about their loved one with dementia is, well, you can say anything. They don't understand what you're saying anyway. They
Right.
can, they're just kind of kooky. They're not here anymore. They're not even in here. And that is simply not true. That's not true. But if someone feels that way, then they probably don't have any need to communicate with their loved one. Their presence would be very challenging for their loved one to imagine. It brings conflict, it brings concern, it brings confusion, it dismisses and diminishes the loved one. I'm not big on that.
We certainly don't want to do that. There is
No.
a wealth of information that is down below in the information box, and we invite you to take a look at those links and follow them if your loved one with dementia is in the stages where you wish to better communicate with them. Carol
Sure.
Taylor has been our guest. She is a licensed clinical social worker from Jackson, Wyoming, who specializes in geriatric care. Carol, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you, dear. Great to be here.
You've been watching once again a YouTube video presentation of the University of Wyoming Center on Aging. We hope, if you haven't done so already, that you'll subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up like button. Both of those actions help the channel to grow and allow us to reach more people. And if you'll tap that notification bell, you'll be alerted each time we upload a new video. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm Scott Veach. We'll see you again next time.